What if the Hogwarts letter didn't just arrive for Harry Potter? What if the magical gene manifested in the bloodline of his most famous bully? Today we deconstruct a timeline where Dudley Dursley is a wizard. In the original Harry Potter series, the Dursleys are the ultimate symbol of normalcy. But biology is rarely so neat. Imagine the psychological fracture at number 4 Privet Drive when the mail slot clicks and 2 parchment envelopes hit the floor. One for the cupboard under the stairs and one for the second bedroom. A single Tuesday in July shatters the Dursley reality. 2 envelopes arrive in emerald ink. For Petunia, this is the resurrection of a repressed trauma. She is torn between the jealousy of her sister, Lily, and the biological imperative to protect her son. For Vernon, the collapse is total. A magical nephew is an infection, but a magical son is a betrayal of the bloodline. Their claim to normalcy is structurally annihilated. The denial reaches its breaking point when Rubeus Hagrid kicks down the door. He is not there solely for the boy who lived. He is there to collect 2 students. The revelation shifts the power dynamic of the room instantly. While Harry's tuition is secured by the Potter Vault, Dudley is registered under the Muggle-born Assistance Fund. This financial technicality forces Vernon into a corner. He cannot pay for magic, but he can no longer stop it. In his father's eyes, Dudley has transitioned from the golden child to a freak. Diagon Alley is an equalizer. Stripped of his gang, Dudley navigates the cobbled stones as a terrified outsider. At Ollivanders, the divergence is finalised. While Harry bonds with the agile phoenix feather, Dudley requires a weapon of mass. He is chosen by Blackthorn, a wood associated with warriors and hardship. It is 11 inches, stubby, and rigid with a dragon heartstring core. It is not a wand for subtle charms, it is a handle for raw power. At Hogwarts, the Sorting Hat encounters a unique psychological profile. It sees Dudley's ambition, but finds it too blunt for Slytherin. It sees a desire for power, but lacks the intellect of Ravenclaw. However, the Hat detects a dormant trait, loyalty. Dudley operates on a binary code of us versus them. If that loyalty can be shifted from his parents to his peers, he will become an immovable object. The Hat screams, Hufflepuff. The Great Hall goes silent. The Badgers politely applaud, unsure what to do with the boy who looks like a rugby player in wizard robes. The academic year begins not with wonder, but with a functional stalemate. Dudley Dursley retreats into a shell of silence, becoming a social pariah within Hufflepuff House. He is the big boy in the yellow tie, a hulking figure of repressed rage who looks perpetually on the verge of detonation. The core issue is mechanical. His wand, 11 inches of rigid Blackthorn, is a disaster in the classroom. Wand law dictates that Blackthorn bonds best through hardship or danger, neither of which Dudley has truly experienced yet. He is filled only with petulant frustration, a fuel source the wand refuses to metabolize. While Hermione Granger perfects the Alohomora charm with elegant wrist movements, Dudley's wand merely sparks and burns his hand. He finishes the first term as the statistically worst student in his year. The failure validates his father's voice in his head. Magic is not a gift, it is a freakish curse. The turning point arrives in December. When the sign-up sheet for the winter holidays circulates, Dudley fully expects to return to Privet Drive. Instead, he receives a letter from Vernon Dursley. The message is brief and devastating. His mother is unwell, and it is deemed better if he stays with his own kind. The subtext is brutal. Dudley realizes he is being replaced. The perfect son has been recategorized as an infection to be quarantined. He is forced to remain in the drafting corridors of a near-empty castle, exiled from the only home he has ever known. Christmas morning highlights the disparity of their new reality. Harry Potter receives the invisibility cloak, a family heirloom of immense value. Dudley receives a single cold fruitcake from Petunia. Seeing his cousin's misery, Harry attempts to bridge the gap. He offers to help Dudley with the levitation charm in an empty classroom. For a few hours, the dynamic shifts. They are almost brothers, but the mechanics of magic fail them. Harry makes the levitation look effortless, which only fuels Dudley's deep-seated inferiority complex. After the 20th failure, the pressure vessel bursts. Dudley's magic lashes out, not as a structured spell, but as a raw burst of accidental force. The shockwave knocks Harry backward. Dudley screams that he never asked for this power, labeling Harry a know-it-all freak, before storming off into the isolation of the astronomy tower. Later that week, the narrative brings Dudley to the Mirror of Erised. He stumbles upon Harry, who is entranced by the vision of his deceased parents. When Harry steps aside to let Dudley look, the reflection shifts. Dudley does not see himself as a powerful wizard, a head boy, or a king. He sees Vernon and Petunia Dursley. They are hugging him, looking at him with the same pride they possessed before the letters arrived. Crucially, in the reflection, Dudley is wearing his Hufflepuff robes. He sees a version of reality that is currently impossible, a world where he is happy, magical, and loved by his parents simultaneously. The realization breaks him. He understands that he does not want power. He wants the restoration of the domestic status quo. The year concludes with the defeat of Quirrell, an event Dudley watches from the periphery of the feast in silence. He has played no part in the heroics. He has merely survived the ego death. On the train ride back to King's Cross, the silence between the cousins shifts from hostile to companionable. They sit in the same compartment. No words are exchanged, but in a significant tactical concession, Dudley shares his snacks with Harry. It is a silent truce. The reality of his new life solidifies at platform 9 3/4. Vernon Dursley is waiting. He ignores Harry entirely, but his treatment of Dudley is terrifyingly distinct. He greets his son with a cold, clinical politeness, treating him like a stranger or a distant business acquaintance. Dudley realizes that the Duddykins of his childhood is dead. He has returned to the Muggle world not as a son, but as a known variable to be managed. The summer of 1992 transforms number 4 Privet Drive into a psychological tomb. Vernon Dursley shifts from denial to primal fear, treating Dudley not as a son, but as a dormant explosive. While Harry is locked away, Dudley is left to roam a house that no longer welcomes him. He channels his frustration into physical training, running laps in the garden to burn off the magic that refuses to flow. By the time he boards the train to Hogwarts, he understands that his childhood protection is gone. He is on his own. The catalyst for his evolution occurs at the dueling club. Paired with an aggressive Slytherin who fires a genuine curse, Dudley acts on pure survival instinct. He thrusts his Blackthorn wand forward like a spear, not with finesse, but with a raw refusal to be hurt. The result is a jagged, high-density Protego. It knocks his opponent backward, silencing the room. In this moment, the wand finally bonds. Dudley realizes he is not a caster of subtle charms. He is a generator of blunt force defense. With the school paralyzed by the air of Slytherin attacks, Dudley undergoes a rapid psychological restructuring. He realizes that the fear paralyzing the Hufflepuffs is the same fear he used to inflict on others. He begins walking younger Muggleborns to class, using his physical size as a deterrent. For the first time, he discovers a new chemical rush. The dopamine hit he used to get from bullying is replaced by the deeper satisfaction of being a living wall. He realizes he does not miss being a predator. He prefers being the barrier the predator cannot break. When the school turns on Harry for being a parcel mouth, Dudley creates a territorial blockade in the Great Hall. He stands between the mob and his cousin. He offers no moral defense of Harry's character. He simply issues a tribal decree. He states that while Harry may be a freak, he is Dudley's freak. It is the first public act of loyalty he has ever committed. The year concludes not with a battle, but with a definition. On the train ride home, Dudley writes a letter to his mother. He does not ask for permission to return. He simply states his new reality. I am not a freak. I am a protector. He signs the parchment, realizing that for the first time in his life, he respects the face looking back at him in the window. In year 3, the academic year begins with a psychological breach on the Hogwarts Express. When the Dementor enters the carriage, the effect on Dudley Dursley is distinct from Harry's. While Harry relives the trauma of his mother's death, Dudley is forced to relive the trauma he inflicted on others. The coldness he feels is secondary to a visceral shame. The Dementor acts as a mirror, reflecting his own worst moments back at him. He hears the sound of his own laughter as he hits younger children, but stripped of his ego, it sounds like the noise of a monster. He does not faint, but the experience leaves him shaking. When the creature leaves, he cannot look at Harry in the eye. He realizes that the monster the Wizarding World fears is less terrifying than the person he used to be. Harry invites Dudley to the remedial anti-Dementor lessons with Professor Lupin, but the mechanics of the Patronus charm prove incompatible with Dudley's psyche. The spell requires a powerful happy memory. Every time Dudley reaches for one, receiving a new bike, winning a boxing match, the memory turns to ash in his mind. He realizes that his joys were derived from selfishness, rendering them insufficient fuel for the charm. In Year 1, this failure would have resulted in a broken wand and a tantrum. In Year 3, Dudley displays a startling maturity. After an hour of producing nothing but sparks, he simply lowers his wand. He admits to Lupin that he does not yet possess a memory good enough to cast the spell, but he commits to practicing the movements regardless. Lupin is stunned. The boy has accepted the dignity of failure. The climax at the Black Lake is defined not by magic, but by endurance. As hundreds of Dementors descend upon a collapsed Harry and Sirius, Dudley realizes he cannot cast the Patronus. He creates a new tactical solution. He drops his wand, he steps in front of the two wizards and spreads his arms, presenting himself as a biological barrier. He makes a calculated decision. If the Dementors require a soul, they must take his first. He endures the soul-crushing cold of 100 Dementors through sheer Hufflepuff stubbornness. He stands his ground not as a wizard, but as a Muggle protector shielding his kin. Unbeknownst to him, his Blackthorn wand lying on the grass begins to glow. It is finally bonding. It recognizes that its master is passing through the ultimate hardship, not for glory, but for the preservation of another. The year concludes with the death of Dudley's ego. On the return journey to King's Cross, he is exhausted but settled. He has performed no great magic, but he has survived the darkness of his own mind. The transformation is codified at the station. When Vernon Dursley begins barking orders, Dudley does not flinch or seek approval. He ignores the noise entirely. He walks to the trolley, picks up his own trunk, and then picks up Harry's. He carries both to the car in silence. He is no longer Duddykins, or a child seeking validation. He is an autonomous unit that Vernon Dursley no longer understands. In Year 4, the academic year begins with the introduction of a new variable, Cedric Diggory. For Dudley Dursley, Diggory represents a behavioural template he has never encountered. Cedric is athletic, popular, and powerful, traits Dudley possessed at Smeltings. But he wields them with grace rather than cruelty. Cedric notices the big kid in the common room practicing shield charms with blunt, repetitive force. He initiates a mentorship. He takes Dudley under his wing, not to teach him finesse, but to refine his physical magic. Under Diggory's guidance, Dudley finds a sense of belonging that is not based on fear. When Harry Potter's name emerges from the Goblet of Fire, the Hufflepuff common room transforms into a den of resentment. The Badgers feel their singular moment of glory has been stolen. The house expects Dudley, the cousin, to lead the Potter Stinks campaign. Dudley refuses. When confronted by Ernie Macmillan, Dudley does not deliver a speech on morality. He offers a binary assessment of character. Harry may be many things, but he is not a liar. If he denies the act did not occur. The social cost is immediate. Dudley becomes an outcast within his own house. He is exiled to the library, spending his time with Harry and Hermione, helping his cousin prepare for the first task. He chooses loyalty over tribalism, a decision that isolates him socially but hardens his resolve. During the lead up to the tasks, the training dynamic shifts. Harry requires a target for his hexes, and Dudley volunteers as the Heavy. This training regime showcases Dudley's specialised magical signature. While he remains incapable of a proper stupefy, he becomes a savant of the impediment jinx and shield charms. He instructs Harry to increase the velocity of his spells, using his own physical durability to simulate the danger of the dragons. He acts as a living impact absorber, forcing Harry to sharpen his offensive capabilities against a target that refuses to stay down. The Yule Ball serves as a measure of Dudley's social evolution. He does not seek a partner to enhance his status. Instead, he invites a fellow Hufflepuff who has been the target of Slytherin mockery. Dudley treats the evening as a security detail. He acts as a literal wall between his date and the sneers of Draco Malfoy's entourage. He is indifferent to the whispers of the pureblood elite. His focus is entirely on the dignity of his companion. He has ceased to care about being cool. He now cares only about being solid. The climax of the year occurs on the Quidditch pitch. The air is filled with music until Harry Potter crashes onto the grass, clutching the body of Cedric Diggory. The crowd freezes in a collective psychological shock. Dudley Dursley is the first to break the perimeter. He sprints onto the pitch, bypassing the stunned faculty. He looks down at his role model, the man who taught him how to be a good man, lying dead. He looks into Harry's eyes and sees the raw, unadulterated terror of the graveyard. The year concludes on the train ride home. The petulance of childhood has been surgically removed, replaced by a cold, hard focus. Dudley asks a single question. He is back, isn't he? When Harry nods, Dudley grips his wand. The wood of the Blackthorn has darkened, turning almost black. It feels heavy and cold like iron. The wand has finally passed through hardship. It has metabolized the trauma of the third task. It is no longer a tool for schoolwork. It is a weapon for a soldier. The death of Cedric Diggory marks the end of Dudley's childhood and the birth of a soldier. It is the pivot point of this entire timeline. If you've enjoyed the journey from Privet Drive to the Triwizard Tournament, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Anyway, back to the video. The summer of 1995 brings the war to the suburbs. When the Dementors corner Harry and Dudley in the alleyway, the engagement parameters shift. The cold is absolute. Dudley draws his Blackthorn wand, not in panic, but in a desperate attempt to replicate the magic he has seen Harry perform. He attempts the Patronus charm. The result is a thin, wispy mist that evaporates instantly. The failure brings a familiar, suffocating shame, the internal confirmation that he is statistically not enough. However, survival instinct overrides insecurity. Instead of collapsing, Dudley pivots to his specialized physical magic. He casts a Protego charm, but drives the spell forward with his shoulder, a shield bash. It does not banish the creature, but the kinetic force physically shoves the Dementor back, buying Harry the critical microsecond needed to cast the Expecto Patronum. At Hogwarts, Dudley becomes a founding member of Dumbledore's army, assuming the role of the tank. While Harry instructs the group on disarming and stunning, Dudley teaches reflexes and durability. The limitations of his magic resurface during the Patronus lessons. The room of requirement fills with silver animals, but Dudley's wand remains silent. He watches the young student succeed where he fails. However, the shame of the summer is gone, replaced by acceptance. He verbalizes his doctrine to Harry. He doesn't need a silver bird to protect people. He has his shield. He accepts that his magic is earthbound. He becomes the most coveted sparring partner in the room because his defense is mathematically unbreakable. The narrative moves to the Department of Mysteries. Harry launches a rescue mission for Sirius Black. Dudley refuses to be left behind as a non-combatant. In the Room of Prophecy, the Death Eaters surround them. Dudley does not attempt to duel according to wizarding etiquette. He treats the engagement like a rugby match with magical augmentation. He utilizes his Blackthorn wand to cast heavy-duty impediment jinxes that impact with the force of a collision. The climax of his tactical evolution occurs when a Death Eater fires a killing curse at Hermione. Dudley knows his shield cannot stop Avada Kedavra. Instead, he thinks in terms of physics. He casts Reducto on a nearby stone plinth, exploding the debris into the path of the green light. He intercepts the unblockable curse not with magic, but with mass. The year concludes with the war becoming public knowledge. On the train ride home, the silence between the cousins is heavy. Harry mourns the loss of Sirius. Dudley mourns the final death of his childhood innocence. The return to Privet Drive offers a shifted domestic reality. Petunia Dursley opens the door to find her son bruised and scarred from the Ministry battle, but standing tall. She looks at him and finally recognizes the man he is becoming. She does not offer a hug. The emotional barriers remain too high, but she makes him a tea. It is a small, non-verbal gesture, but it signifies the first magical peace the house has ever known. In Year 6, the academic year is defined by Harry Potter's obsessive surveillance of Draco Malfoy. While Harry hunts for a Death Eater, Dudley Dursley observes something far more familiar. Across the Great Hall, he does not see a villain in the making. He sees a mirror of his own history. He recognizes the specific hollow terror of a boy performing cruelty to satisfy a father who views him as an asset, rather than a son. Dudley intercepts Malfoy in a quiet corridor. He does not draw his wand. He utilizes the big boy intimidation tactics of his youth, but repurposes them for empathy. He corners Draco and delivers a surgical dismantling of the Slytherin's persona. He tells him he knows he is doing things he is scared of because he thinks he has to. He tells him how it doesn't end well. Draco almost breaks. For a moment the mask slips, revealing the terrified child beneath. His pride ultimately wins out and he flees, but the interaction plants a seed of doubt. Dudley has successfully identified the cracks in the enemy's armour, not through legitimacy, but through a shared trauma. Academically, Dudley accepts a hard truth. He will never be a spellcaster in the traditional sense. His wand work lacks the fluidity for complex charms. Consequently, he pivots to combat geometry under the tutelage of Professor Flitwick. He stops aiming at opponents and begins aiming at the architecture. He learns to manipulate the environment to compensate for his lack of range. He freezes the floor to eliminate footing. He severs chandelier chains to create vertical hazards. The Blackthorn wand, now fully bonded, acts as a mirror, turning an opponent's power back on them. He is no longer just a tank, he is a hazard. The climax arrives with the siege of the Astronomy Tower. While Harry ascends to witness the death of Dumbledore, Dudley remains in the corridors with the DA. He leads the Hufflepuff contingent in a defensive formation. Their objective is not to win duels or capture Death Eaters. It is area denial. They refuse to let the invaders pass toward the younger students. In the heat of the engagement, the Blackthorn wand finally sings. It produces a barrier of magical force so dense and impenetrable that it ceases to be a spell and becomes a physical wall. The Death Eaters, unable to breach the Hufflepuff line, are forced to retreat and seek alternative routes. Dudley Dursley has successfully become the immovable object. The year concludes with the funeral of Albus Dumbledore. The mood is somber, but the paths diverge. Harry makes the decision to hunt the Horcruxes alone, with Ron and Hermione. Dudley stands with him, looking at the horizon. He understands his immediate duty lies elsewhere. He tells Harry he has to go home and get his parents out. But after they are safe, he is coming back. He will not let Harry finish this alone. The evacuation of Number 4 Privet Drive is not a stealth operation. It is a combat extraction. As the Order of the Phoenix initiates the transport, the protective enchantments surrounding the property fractured the moment Harry Potter turns 17. The attack is immediate. A squad of Death Eaters ambushes the convoy in the driveway. While the Order scrambles to engage, Dudley Dursley does not wait for rescue. He leaps from the back seat of the Dursley car, his Blackthorn wand glowing a low, dangerous orange. He utilises the kinetic shield technique he mastered in Year 6. He levitates a heavy piece of garden debris, a stone planter, intercepting a killing curse mid-air. He follows the block with a shield bash, pushing a Protego outward with such velocity that it sends a Death Eater flying through the front door of the house Dudley grew up in. The structural damage to the home is total, mirroring the collapse of his old life. In the ensuing chaos, the Death Eaters deploy a biological weapon, Dementors. They swarm the driveway, paralysing the Muggles with supernatural fear. Vernon Dursley is pinned against the bonnet of his car. The cold is so intense that the windshields shatter. A Dementor lowers its hood, its skeletal hands gripping Vernon's shoulders, preparing to administer the kiss. Dudley attempts to intervene. He tries to cast the Patronus charm using the standard operating procedure. He reaches for memories of his childhood, of smeltings, of video games. Nothing happens. The mist is thin and useless. He realises that his pre-magical life offers no fuel for the light. It was a life built on consumption, not creation. He looks at his father, a man currently being drained of his soul, and experiences a paradigm shift. He realises that for the last 6 years, his only true happiness has not come from taking, but from keeping people safe. He stops searching for a memory. He focuses entirely on the feeling of being a shield. He yells the incantation, not as a request for help, but as a command to the Ether. A blinding silver light erupts from the Blackthorn wand. It does not take the form of a wispy bird or a sleek cat. It manifests as a badger. It is solid, muscular, and incredibly fierce. The Patronus does not float, it charges. It tackles the Dementor off Vernon Dursley, clawing at the shadows with relentless silver fury. It is the embodiment of a Hufflepuff house, grounded, loyal, and dangerous when provoked. The Death Eaters retreat, repelled by the Order and the unexpected resistance. The Dementors vanish. Vernon Dursley is left gasping for air on the pavement, his soul intact, but his worldview shattered. He looks up at his son. For the first time, he does not see a freak or a disappointment. He sees a man who just physically wrestled a nightmare to save him. Dudley helps Vernon to his feet. Petunia is sobbing nearby. Vernon does not say "I love you." he is not capable of that level of emotional articulation. Instead, he reaches out, grips Dudley's shoulder, and gives him a single firm nod. It is a gesture of absolute respect between men. After securing his parents in a location even the Ministry couldn't track, Dudley turns his back on safety and returns to the fire. He returns to the Battle of Hogwarts in the final hour, appearing not as a student, but as a sentinel. He does not seek out Harry for praise, he simply takes his place in the Great Hall, his Blackthorn wand creating a perimeter of safety for the wounded. He is the only wizard present who fights with the tactical mindset of a boxer and the unwavering loyalty of a badger. The dust of the Great Hall settles into a heavy, ringing silence. The war is over, and the Sentinel's duty is discharged. Dudley does not stay for the commendations or the victory feast. He simply holsters the Blackthorn wand, now as dark and scarred as the history it helped preserve. He departs the castle as he inhabited it, quiet, massive, and resolute. He returns to the Muggle world to perform the most difficult magic of his life, the slow structural dismantling of a lifetime of silence between a father and a son. 19 years later, in a public park bathed in the amber light of autumn, Dudley Dursley sits on a bench, his presence massive and grounded. Next to him sits Vernon Dursley, now a frail man, his once boisterous aggression replaced by a quiet, observant stasis. Dudley's daughter plays in the grass nearby. She is bright, spirited, and named for the aunt Dudley only learned to respect in the shadow of war. Violet Lily Dursley. A red ball rolls away from her, bouncing towards a pond. Before Dudley can move, Violet reaches out a hand. There is no wand, no incantation, only a sharp, sudden crack of displaced air. The ball vanishes from the edge of the water and reappears instantly in her lap. Dudley's heart stops. The old Smeltings era instinct, the biological memory of 4 Privet Drive, flares up. He waits for the purple-faced rage. He waits for his father to scream freak. He looks at Vernon, his body tensing as if to absorb a blow meant for the child. Vernon Dursley looks at the ball. He looks at the little girl who bears the name of the sister-in-law he spent decades trying to erase. He lets out a long, heavy breath. The sound of a man finally laying down a weapon he's been carrying for 70 years. He reaches out a weathered, trembling hand and pats Violet on the head. He doesn't look at Dudley. He keeps his eyes on the girl. "Good reflex, Violet," he tells her, his voice gravelly but firm. A proper Dursley always keeps hold of what's hers. In that moment, the long war for the Dursley soul, a conflict that began with a single green-inked envelope decades ago, is finally won. The story of Dudley Dursley is not a story of a boy who became a great wizard in the way the history books define it. He never won a duel against a Dark Lord. He never mastered the subtle arts of transfiguration. But he did something far more difficult. He dismantled the architecture of hate that he was born into. He took a heart that was trained to hate and turned it into a shield. In this timeline, the Dursley name is no longer a footnote of prejudice in Harry Potter's biography. It is its own legend, a testament to the idea that where you start is not where you must end. This deconstruction of the Hufflepuff Tank is just one way the architecture of the wizarding world could have been reshaped. If you found this analytical journey through Dudley's redemption compelling, consider supporting the channel. By subscribing and liking this video, you help the algorithm prioritize these deep dive narratives for other seekers of the what if. Drop a comment below with which character you'd like to see us deconstruct next. And as always, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.